1 in 5 Americans will develop skin cancer before the age of 70.
Welcome to this week's episode of Beauty Babble. Today, we're unpacking sunscreen from SPF to ingredients. We're busting some common myths and sharing tips on how you can help your clients stay sun safe. This is a very timely topic. Today in Edmonton, it's, 30 plus degrees and super sunny. So we're thinking about sunscreen, right? And I thought, Suzanne, maybe you can just kick us off. I said SPF, but maybe we can define SPF first before we get into talking about a sunscreen, maybe starting off with some of those myths.
Yeah, so SPF is sun protection factor, and it really comes down to that number on the bottle that you're buying of how long you're protected for. And I think a note to make is that it's a sunscreen. So think of it like a screen on your windows. It'll keep most of the bugs out, but not all of it. So it's like a filter idea where there are sun blocks, which actually have the rays that come and hit the skin basically reflect right off like a mirror aspect, right? So it's important to understand that. And I think we assume that everybody knows. So with your clients, make sure that you're explaining these things as reminders because they just, even doctors say use your SPF, but they don't really define the difference between them. Some of the myths are, as we know, you only need it in the summer, but we know that's not true. You should be using it all year round because sometimes we're forgetting, you know, the time of the day than we are, maybe walking down to the mailbox and it's sunny on a cool day. You're still
Mhm.
being exposed to those sun rays, which within minutes, right? So I think we forget that, yeah, you're not going to burn within minutes, but it's still the UV is what's penetrating to the skin. What are some other
So
things?
actually, before you proceed on to another one, I have some questions for you. You shared a lot of info there. When it comes to sunscreen and sunblock, I love the analogy you gave about the screen on your door. That's really cool. I never thought of that before. But how can you, how are they different in the product? Like, is it easy to identify for clients, like the average person who wouldn't know, other than does it say on the bottle? Like, how can you help your clients distinguish between those two and knowing which one you need?
Really, it comes down to a mineral sunscreen. It's going to be mineral based, which, a lot of people know zinc oxide. So I ask, or titanium oxide, those are like the big, I'd say, trigger words in that side of things.
Mm.
So you think of a lot of times sometimes people don't know what it is. So have you ever seen people who are skiing and they use that colored stuff on their nose or white or whatever it may be? That's actually zinc oxide that they're putting straight on their skin. And it helps that the reflection for the skiers, but or even football players. Have you seen them put that on their face?
Hmm.
They take their mask off. That's basically their intent, I don't think, is the sun in a sense, but it's about that reflection of the sun as well, so they can see clearer.
Okay.
Yeah. So you think mineral based makeup, mineral based sunscreen, sun blocks, I would say. There are makeups that have it. Remember, it's a makeup. You really need to understand the depth of protection. In today's day and age, that's an expectation that they should be able to tell you as ingredients as well as how does this protect me from the sun? Because they're using those claims as well in their makeup, in the products. Like when you have this always came up. I mean, I'm going back years ago as my most experience, right, with clients is that their day cream has both. And I always said to them, yeah, but what's the purpose behind the cream? What's the goal of that cream? If it's an anti-age product and has sunscreen in it, it's the sunscreen that's going to do more of the work than the anti-aging side effects of that.
Right.
Now, is it anti-aging because it has sunscreens in it? Sure. Yes, that's true because it's the sun that protects you. But that's not what we think about when we're buying products for anti-aging. We're not thinking that it's a sunscreen, right? So, or
Right.
even clients aren't thinking that. So really get to know your product. I think I shared the story on here before how I had recently actually a client of mine. She said she had some cream and she just, loved it and it's anti-aging. And I said, okay, no problem. Like it cost her almost $200 in the department store, I'll say. And, she's quite proud that she spent a lot of money on her product. But she was also going to be investing in some treatments. So she wanted to know, will it work? Is this good? And I said, listen,
Hmm.
I'm not asking you to change your product line. However, let's make sure it's going to give you everything you need. Because I know what my products do. right? In
Right.
conjunction with the treatment. So I took it upon myself, and she snapped me a picture of what she used, and I looked it up and I researched. And the top three ingredients were sunscreen. And there was nothing anti-aging about it. In
Okay.
our eyes, when we hear anti-aging, we're thinking antioxidants and maybe a triazinoid inhibitor or things like this to anti-age. And she was really upset. And I said, well, they're not lying. They're not technically lying to you, because she felt like she'd been betrayed almost. That they're protecting from the sun, and we know that sun ages people. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a fine line. I said, but I'm
Yeah.
not here to put down product lines. I'm just here to help you understand how they do their stuff.
Okay,
You
so
know?
I just maybe just is it then when you are helping your client pick a sunscreen, are you then is it just based on the products that you let's say they're just going to choose whatever product. So you're not confined to the product that you work with. Is there I know I'm jumping around here with
That's
from our
okay.
outline, but
Yeah.
is there like when you're like, there's the physical and chemical sunscreen. So if it has certain ingredients, it's a physical sunscreen, right? Versus
Chemical.
others. So what would be a physical sunscreen?
Your sun hat, your jackets, or your
Okay. And then
basically
anything that you
anything.
put on your skin is a chemical sunscreen.
Basically, yeah. In
Okay.
fairness, it's going to be a chemical.
But then some of them are sunblock, or is it just the ingredients that makes them sunblock?
Ingredients.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Good
is
question.
it fair to just call them all sunscreen then?
The heading of it all that most people are going to understand is SPF, sunscreen. Use your sunscreen, use your sunscreen. But then when you're defining maybe with your product line, that's where it comes in. You need to educate, well, yourself to be able to say what it's in the ingredients of why it does a better job or whatever it may be, that you're proud of the line you're carrying,
Right.
is to understand the difference in the product lines. So many years ago, there was not a lot of sunscreen with some of the lines I carried.
Hmm.
That's actually why I brought in a mineral-based makeup line. Was one, it was really great for that, but it also had an underlining, somewhat of an SPF to it, I'll say. Today we know more about it than we did, years ago. But
Hmm.
it did have zinc oxide and titanium oxide in it. So I knew they were blocking. It was a mirror bouncing off. Even if it was short term, it was something.
Hmm.
And the other thing was because a lot of the over the counter product is for head to toe. It's not, not always just for the face, right?
Right.
So, call me crazy, but I use one for my face and something different for my body. That's what
Oh,
I
I do
do.
that on my kids too.
Yeah, yeah. So even
But I
years
see other
ago,
people like slathering the same stuff all over their kids' face and their body, and I'm like, but that's
you're like, oh, that's the
the
esthetician in
skin
you.
snob in me.
You imagine that should be a GIF
Yeah.
or a
Like,
meme. Oh,
oh
I
my
love
gosh.
it.
Yeah, my kids go to their like play date with their face sunscreen and their body sunscreen.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah.
Well, since we're talking, let's talk about the other product, the ingredients, because and then we'll talk about myths. Myths are fun, but
Sure.
let's since we just started talking about the ingredients, you mentioned zinc oxide and titanium dioxide as
Yes.
two that
So
are that reflective. There was one infographic I saw with like arrows, and then the one arrow it would go into the skin, and then the other one it showed it bouncing
bounce
off.
off. That's
And that
exactly
is
it.
like what I'm thinking, like the sun, those ingredients would help the sun would help it
Correct.
bounce off versus, yeah.
Yeah. One thing is to think of that oily free sunscreen, I think is a big one, because a lot of people, I could never put that on my face. I understand why people are saying that. It's not like you're hanging out at the lake or the beach, right? So you're trying to work, and you got your makeup on and it's sliding off your face or into your eyes or whatever it may be, and you can't see during your meeting. Like I do understand,
Hmm.
we're looking at, but basically it's something that's not going to clog pores. So comedogenic and oil free if possible. The one thing to know, like oily clients are going to love your zinc oxide, titanium oxide, because they suck up during the day.
Hmm.
So on that note, think of your drier clients, your more sensitive clients, maybe your older clients. I think I shared that with you during the stories. Like what I'd have to put on my face once I'd use my mineral makeup, it would just suck me dry. Like you
Hmm.
see all the lines in my face from the dehydration. So I really made sure I was using serums underneath and a heavier cream. So usually with products, there's two types of finishing creams: a light cream, for your oily
Yeah.
combination skins, and then your heavier creams for your normal dry sensitive. So I'd always have to use my heavier creams, even, and it's not because of my age. Now, people, I'm going back years ago. It did. I call that Alberta weather is why.
Well, but yeah, but I think that's important to tell your client too, because they might not know they're using this sunscreen and it's drying them out and they're going to hate it
They're
because
going to
they're
think
not
it's your
doing it.
product.
Yeah,
They're going to turn
absolutely.
around
So
and think
just
it's your product.
letting them know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's not necessarily that you sell them that sunscreen, sunblock, or the mineral makeup, but there's something about it, so you can tell them, okay, this is what we need to do. Here's a game plan for you, right? I'm just happy you're using sunscreen. So I used to tell my clients, listen, even to this day, if you want to go buy whatever sunscreen, okay, that's on you. I'm not going to stop you. I'm going to have you pick a product. I can tell you what you can use here and then protect yourself, right? But yeah, so zinc oxide and titanium oxide also are anti-inflammatory and antibacterial. So again, it's sucking out that has that property to kind of benefit that acne skin. There's also iron oxides, and they also, again, you can hear the oxides in it. So it's going to still do the reflecting of the light, but it also helps to keep that shine down. Again, those minerals are all about that excess oil, and the shine down is because it's actually drawing in and holding the oils of your skin. So giving that nice light look on the skin. Sometimes foundations might have that. So it's something you could look at with your products, or again, research your clients' ingredients. And yeah, literally, it's not that I read the ingredient, will understand the ingredient. I then Google the ingredient to see what it is. I mean, we're not scientists and chemists here. So and some of you are, so bravo to you that know it off by heart right away, right? Dimethicone, I think, is a silicone-based ingredient. I think I might have butchered that name. But again, it's for oily skin. It's going to give that mattifying look and reduce the shine. That's what they pretty much all do. So again, people with dry skin, it's going to naturally absorb what oils you have on your skin. So be mindful of that as well, right? Yeah, and those are the top ones. Silica is another one. It's oil absorbing again. Like those are going to help control the excess oil. So one thing why I love it for the oily skin is because most sunscreens they don't like because it's oily, right? So you get your acne clients to use sunscreen sometimes because of that base. And the other side that people need to understand is when it's active acne or still healing, that it's red because the blood's going in there to heal what's going on, right? So we all know what carries blood. What's in blood is melanin. So if you're high concentration of melanin in each of those little pustules, what do you think the sun's doing to that melanin area? And then you end up with those stains and those spots.
Right.
So hyperpigmentation. So this is why it's really important for anyone that has anything going on the skin where it's drawing blood to an area, a cut, maybe burned with their flat iron on their neck, right? So anything like that, I think people need to remember what's going with the bloodstream as well. And I think that's why it was always an easier kind of sell or push or educational matter to those clients, because then they understood better why, and they usually loved it too. Like I said, there was days that I couldn't do the sun. I had to use a cream instead of the mineral makeup myself, but that's because of the dryness in the air and everything. Maybe if I was by the ocean, like I've told my husband how many times, he doesn't listen. Oh, I'll be very clear though, a very warm climate ocean.
Yeah. I think when you explain it to clients in that way, like the way you explained when you have a breakout or something, like when you explain it, nobody would say no. I think a lot of times clients might get, defensive or, yeah, I use it because they know they should be using it, but are they really using it? And are they really like, I don't know, especially some treatments that we do on clients, like they really have to be using their sunscreen. Like they cannot mess around with it.
I know what I've had discussions with professionals. They say, well, my client refuses to use sunscreen after microdermabrasion or laser or whatever. And I said, well, then I wouldn't be doing their
I
treatment.
would not.
And they're like, really? I said, no, 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 because this sets you apart of that level of professionalism.
Yeah.
That's like a doctor saying, oh, I'll do your peel for you, and they don't advise you on those safety precautions. You would listen to a doctor, wouldn't you? That's what I tell clients. Would you listen to a doctor?
Absolutely.
And
I
I think
usually
that's
always tell clients, you're throwing your money away if you're going to do this treatment and you're not going to use sunscreen.
yeah.
So
And
don't
I
even
think
do the treatment.
long term is what's happening. Like, if I always explain to, I'll say, the younger demographics of the beauty world, if you don't have anyone in your world over, I would say 60 and older, take a look at their skin, get to know people who do have their skin. I'm going through that right now with my own mother. She's 86 years old, and the things that are coming out of her skin now is crazy. And it's all from when she was younger, right?
Yeah. Come back later.
Oh, yeah. And I've taken her to dermatologists. They're testing, it's some form of cancer. It's not going to be melanoma. And that's what everyone thinks. It's melanoma is, well, yes, that is skin cancer, but there's the, proactiveness to all of this. So when you see
Mhm.
changes in the skin, that's something else to be aware of. And it's not what you expect. We always assume it's a mole that changes. It could be pigmentation. It's color of the skin, a funny little shape to the flatness to the skin. You know,
Right.
it's just so many things on that aspect, especially in our world. And it's on hands. Like
Hmm.
your nail tack, you're waxing someone. Like, look at these things, and that's part of your job of the analysis, right? Like
Yeah.
seeing things on other parts is important. You see a mole on their back when they flipped over to do the leg wax.
Mhm.
Mention it.
Yeah.
You took some degree of skin, right? When you're doing waxing, maybe not to the full effect of a facial technician, but it's enough to help. Like that, I think, is our due diligence, is to see, because who sees their back?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Crazy. I saw there's an article I was going to share with you too, that this was why 87% of Americans ignore SPF and what estheticians can do to help. So it
That's a
kind of,
big number.
I know,
87.
like, you just don't think that's true,
That's
right?
insane.
Insane. So it has here. So this is the National Library of Medicine revealed statistics regarding sun protection and skin cancer that many will find shocking.
Yeah.
So again, this is in the United States. We're in Canada. I'm sure we're not far behind. I always say that we are neighbors, just
Yeah.
less population. So 1 in 5 Americans will develop skin cancer before the age of 70. One in
That's crazy.
Add to that, it's being diagnosed much younger now. In fact, here, one of the things that I've been hearing more about is in Canada in general, that dermatologists are becoming harder and harder to get to because more and more people are needing their skin checked.
Yeah.
And they're also, doesn't help that they're probably leaving, going somewhere else. However, there's still that side of it that it can be really difficult to get in. So if you have any um, apprehension, like, oh, I'll phone later, I'll tell my doctor after, but don't wait, because you could be months and months, and that could be a big difference, right?
Especially when you have public health care. You have
Right.
to
Yeah,
pay the price differently.
yes. 11% of participants reported not wearing sunscreen at all. 13.5% of participants wear sunscreen daily. That's so low. Now, 87% of the participants do not wear sunscreen daily. And then, so they are reporting that they'll use it, but not every day.
Yeah.
That's 87% of the people that they study. I didn't look at how many people they asked, but we can always share this link and people can do that research if they'd like. And
Yeah.
66.5% participants believe that sunscreen education should be included in schools.
I agree.
Speaking of that, I shared with you a video that I used to show my grade 9s, because I said, well, how do I start introducing this to these young kids, right? Mind you, it wasn't just grade 9s. I did it every year. That was the intro to the class, pretty much every term, right? So it's on YouTube.
I
And
can share the link in the note.
yeah, it
Yeah.
says how the sun sees you. And it's perfect. Some people understand in this industry because the black light will show up a lot of those things. But the other side of what sunblock does to the skin, and what the kids, how they reacted in the video, It's really, really amazing. So it did help quite a few people to understand. And then unfortunately, until you know someone in your life, if you're not convinced, it's usually when something in your around your world. It could even be your own clients that make you see it differently, or a family member, or someone else that you heard of, or your daughter's, best friend's mom, or do you know what I mean? Like there's so
Yeah.
many things that go on in our world. And I always looked at it as a blessing that I had so many clients in my life that I got to meet at a very, very young age to see. I mean, when I was really young, I didn't use sunscreen. I still come from that, just hovering that generation that were sun worshippers. And I do love the sun, but and now I was like actually thinking this morning when I was going for my walk, I had my sunscreen on, sunblock actually, and I was going, oh yeah, but then I'm going to be in front of the computer. So now I got to use my DD cream for the blue light.
Oh,
I said, oh, good Lord.
you should wear your visor when you go out for a walk.
Oh yeah. Oh, you got to share what that one is. Maybe you want to share.
Yeah. Well, I think by the time this episode gets posted, that video will be on the Beauty Cult's Instagram.
Yes. It's actually, you know what? And there's people that, depending on where around the world they use some sort of head protection or sun visors or something. Speaking of that, I was sharing with you too about how I find it interesting the younger generation in some ways are learning quite a bit more. Maybe it's just my own, I don't know. But my own kids, adult children, they talk about not only when they look at the weather, they're always looking at the index. And I'm just like, oh my God, I just looked at, okay, I know it's going to be a sunny day. Yay.
Yeah.
But then I looked at the UV rating, right? I thought, oh my God, that's so cool that they're paying attention to that.
I'm gonna do that right now. What is today's eve? I don't either.
Yeah. Well, and there's an image that I found, and what was this one? 101 preventing, I think, ultraviolet. And it has like UV rating, 1 to 2 is low. So use your sunglasses, wear your sunscreen, wear a hat, and protective clothing. And as it moves up the scale, they start adding more. So like UV rating 3 to 5 is considered moderate. So you do all the above, your UV blocking sunglasses, your sunscreen, your hat, your clothes, and then stay shady is what they're saying. Stay in the shade as much as you can, especially midday. As it goes up, they're adding on reduce the time in the sun. And then when you go to like 8 to 10, very high, it's also staying out of the sun completely, go inside indoors between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And that's from 8 and up. So you think of that beach and hot weather, or at the lake, like if it's 30, I think someone's going to the lake soon, aren't you?
I am. Yep.
Have
It's
that
gonna be 35 tomorrow.
umbrella. And then even the umbrella, it's interesting. I'll say reduce the time in the sun, but it's still a cloth. So you still have penetration
Yeah.
through. So it's just keeping that in mind when you're out there enjoying that lovely weather. And this could be, you know what? Like you can make this own. I mean, we love Canva, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
You could do your own little image and post it in your room of just giving knowledge or friendly reminders, using your sunscreen. Here's some tips for you to do. So I think it's really important. We love educating clients, but I think if you just give something easy out, then you're not constantly repeating the same thing throughout your day. And it could
Yeah.
just be a post theme of the month or theme of the week or whatever it may be as we talk about our themes. So
And
that's
sometimes like having a visual hits differently than hearing the words, right?
absolutely,
You can hear it, but when you see it, it's like, oh,
yeah.
like even that video you shared, which I'll link in the show notes,
Mhm.
it's really cool. Like the what you can see, I'm like, I don't want to look at my skin like that. But
Yeah,
it hits differently, right? It makes you realize, I don't know, you come face to face with it versus just hearing it.
absolutely. Isn't that the traditional learner though? Like you learn in different ways. You have to have it presented in different ways for it
Yeah,
to click. And I think that's
exactly.
what people need to focus on is I've one of the interesting things that come up a lot of times when I work with professionals these days is that they say, well, just saying it over and over. It's like, yeah, Actually, I'm going to tell you what I used to say. That's like saying, like when people are tired of this, I used to say this with my staff.
Hmm.
That was the theme, and you're going to repeat it all day long. Oh my God, I got to say it again. This is like the 10th time. I said to them, well, that's your job. Like, that's what we're here to do. And they'd say, well, really, couldn't we just post? And I said, posting's good. However, coming from you is different. It's different professionalism. So I do this often. It just pops in my head like I did with the window screen today. I used to say that before, but that's like saying a gynecologist is tired of seeing lady parts all day long. Is that not the job they signed up for?
Yeah.
Right? So they're like, oh, podiatrist. Oh my God, another set of feet. Well, but that is part of your, if you really,
Yeah.
really want to set yourself apart, I'll just say that. Like, own it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every client is a restart. Like, yeah, you may have said it before, but you need to like then this client treat them the same way with the same set of information, the same level of professionalism, all of it.
And how many times has someone told you something you didn't even realize, and that was the day you understood it?
You know, and I actually remember another one with I had a client once and she came in for a leg wax. Her daughter was a hairstylist at the spa I worked at. And she comes in regularly. She sees whoever's available. She wasn't like because of her daughter or whatever. And I've always like, oh, I was talking to her about, how often she should be waxing and why, and going through all of that. And she's like, I've never heard of that. And I'm like,
God, lady.
part of it is like maybe, but I don't know if that's that could be true, but it also could be that you heard it and forgot because maybe you weren't told every single time that you came in. So even if they've heard it, they might need a refresher to hear it again.
Yeah, and they literally think I've never heard it said that way before. I've never understood that, and it's like that's happened to me many times that I was pretty much going to repeat it every time.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, I did say this before in my head. I'm like,
Yeah.
but today's the day it registered. Yay! That's
Exactly.
how I looked at it.
Yeah,
Yay! You got
absolutely. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like chip away, chip away at the barrier of listening.
Well, and sometimes too, it just ends up being you don't know what's going on in someone's world. Like I've had that in my own life, right? Where you think, oh, I never paid attention like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I never understood it like that. Or like you mentioned about sunblock, you understood it, but until you saw the arrow jump off the skin in the diagram and then watching the video, right? It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes you got to see it in different ways, hear it in different ways, and it registers, right? So, and the thing is, we used to focus on the summertime of sun UV protection, but as we know, it's all year round. So I think it's something
Well,
to
that's
remind.
one of the, why don't you talk about the myths then? Because that's one of them.
Right. That was one of them. Well, I mean, every time people is how often are they using it? They say they only use it when they go outside. I mean, I work indoors quite a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember, well, do you use sunscreen every day? I said, no, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Because before, not so much now, but before, I'd get out of my garage into my car. I don't keep my visor open as sunroof thing. It's closed.
Mm-hmm.
I drive up, I get out of my car into a building all day, get back in my car, go into my house, or I go to the gym. So, I'm being honest, the 30 seconds of a walk, I was like, what's that going to do to me?
What about when you're driving?
But with my heads in there, like when I was younger, that's what I was saying. I used to have my visor open and have that air blowing and even take the top of my Jeep
Mm,
off and I'd wear a hat, but that didn't protect from my arms,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Things like that. But what we knew then is quite a bit different than we know now too.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's changed with time, thankfully. But yeah, and you don't really see it till later. I think that's another one. Like SPF infused makeup is enough. It's really not, and I think that's where people need to understand. And that's the same. I think I mentioned it already. Is that okay? What's the job of it? Is it one first the sunscreen, the SPF? That's what that is, and bonus, it's tinted, right? Or are you promoting a makeup that has SPF? So how long will that protect me? Find out what that sun protection factor number is, that SPF number, I think is important too.
Mhm.
But even on a cloudy day, you're still having 80% UV is going through. It still will up to 80% get through the clouds. So we know UVA, UVB are the big ones, right? So
And
we're
I think that like that kind of also marries with the first myth, like sunscreen's only needed in the summer,
yeah.
but that I think summer, I think like sunny days or whatever, but even on overcast days, you
Mhm.
should be wearing sunscreen as well, not just in the summer. I mean, our winters are super sunny, although we have a lot of long, cold winter.
Mm,
It's still pretty sunny. Most of our body is cold covered, but I
much,
don't know,
yeah.
my face isn't. So
What else was on that?
it was no need to reapply.
Oh, yeah.
Was
So
the
you
third
do
myth.
need to reapply. And people ask how often. I said, well, on average, they say every few hours. I said, but again, it depends on that index, right? Like how much are we dealing with? If
Mm.
you can't get out of the sun. Another thing when I was a lot younger living in Vancouver, I worked in the beauty industry, but I was also a letter carrier. So I was out in the sun every day, well, not 365 minus your weeks of holiday, right? But every day I was in the sun and reapplying is like threw it in my bag, so then I'd have that, wear my hat, too hot to wear the sweaters, that type of thing. But I mean, now they've got such nice clothing designed for that. Like you look at people who are surfers, right, in the water all the time. They have UV protected. It's not just for their skin on the board, it's also the sun and the water. So
Mhm.
it's an investment for your body, which I think people we focus on our face because of anti-aging, but we forget that our arms will have pigmentation, hyperpigmentation, hypopigmentation.
Yeah.
Things will change through that, right? But definitely reapplying every few hours for sure is important.
Is reapplication and the timing related to the SPF number? So
Yeah,
the SPF number is related to the percentage of UV rays that are blocked. Is that right?
or
So if I'm
protect. Yes,
saying
that's right.
SPF,
But
30,
it's only
40.
minutes apart, hey? It's only giving you like, what is it, 3 minutes apart or something like that as you go up. Like the
So
difference
it's
from
percentage and time?
like the number on the bottle,
Yeah.
15, 20,
Yeah.
30, 50. Yes. So the difference between the 30 to the 50 and the 50 to the 60,
Hmm.
it's not a big difference, which people think they're protected like another 2 hours because I'm not doing a 15, I'm doing a 50.
Ah,
It
okay, okay.
doesn't
You
actually
still
protect.
do the every 2 hours
It's
reapply,
still every
regardless of
2 hours.
what number of SPF you have.
Yes. And if it's lower, like I never recommend the 15.
Go higher. Go higher with your SPF number.
I think, again, I probably shared this already, my story, but in the winter, I was in Mexico and my husband and I went for a walk. And I was going by myself in the morning sometimes. He's doing his thing. And quite early, like, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
Holidays, so that's early.
Yeah.
And I'd go for my walk, have my sunblock on, and off I'd go and come back. And then one day he's like, oh, I want to go if you wait a little bit. So sure, I'll wait. So it was probably about an hour, 2 hours later. Well, it was way hotter, way more intense. And partway through the walks, I thought we are kind of did the same walk as it took me to the ocean, which, that's why I work
Mhm.
there, and then walk along it and then come back. Well, we didn't come back right away. We decided to take another route because my husband, when he goes out walking, anyone who knows him, he loves to walk. And when he gets going, you can't get him home, which is great. Love it. However, that day I was like, oh my God, I need to get out of here. And, he's Portuguese, I'm Portuguese, but we definitely don't have the same skin. So I said, I'm probably going to be burnt. Like, this is
Mhm.
ridiculous. If I share to the world of my professional friends, I burned my back. So silly.
You'll be shunned.
Yeah. So I said, I got to get head back. And this is near the end of the vacation. So people say, oh, but you have a base. No, you'll still burn. Has nothing to do with the base. You still burn. So we go back and he's like, oh yeah, you are really red. I'm like, yeah. Do you think that plant down there, they mind if we take a chunk of their aloe? So
Nice.
I took the aloe and he's rubbing on my back for me. Do you know my face? So long story short, we were out for 3.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Suzanne was red, all in her back, very bright red, hot red. Do you know my face? I had nothing, not even a suntan line from my glasses.
Oh,
And I was
wearing
using,
a hat too?
no, like
Oh,
literally, I thought I was going for a short walk. So don't criticize. Don't judge me, people. But it was the 50 SPF from, oh, I'm going to put a shout out to Bernard Cassier for their Yuzu 50. Because I
nice.
was like, I knew it was good, but I was like, oh, Lee, this is amazing. And he's like, how come your face isn't red? I'm like, I know, and my neck. And I actually pulled it down into my décolleté, so it wasn't as red. I'm always red there anyways, but it definitely, I wasn't burnt at all where I had that.
That's awesome.
Wow, that was crazy. And no tan lines, which was, that's an indicator to me. Whereas usually my sunscreens that I usually use, it's still my
Yeah.
suntan of my sunglasses, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, do reapply
Every 2 hours.
at least
More
every
if
few
you're
hours.
like in the sun or I'm sorry, in the water or you're sweating or something like
Yeah,
that.
definitely. If
Reapply more
you're in
often.
water, on water, that reflection of the water is like the snow. Snow's worse actually. People are
Yeah.
surprised that they burn when they go skiing. So
Mm,
clients are going, or family, friends, or whoever, right? And I was like, make sure you use sunblock. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're gonna burn,
yeah.
you know? And especially that Christmas vacation break, right? That's a lot of people out here go skiing. And that's when I'd say, I'd have my sign posted, you skiing, then you're blocking.
That's so funny. When we go skiing though, there's like the goggles, then there's it's so freaking cold. I get cold
Yeah.
easily. So I'm like, there's no part of me that is visible.
But there's some days that were really sunny, right? Because I know some people that they love,
Yeah.
and they're shirtless now. It's like, oh my God. And then they wonder why they burned. But yeah. So reapply, my people,
Yeah.
reapply.
Absolutely. Well, I think that, we covered what we came here to cover with the sunscreen. And yeah, I think, do we have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think it'd be interesting to hear back from people. I mean, we love hearing your guys' feedback. If you know of a product that you love, and we'll put a shout out to it, and we just want to spread this out to everyone so everyone knows there's a lot of great lines that have really taken the time to invest into this, into their product line. And I think it's just part of their protocols now too, because they really see, the rise of skin cancer is phenomenal from 20 years ago to today.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. All right. Well, on that note, sad note, we will end today's episode. Thanks so much for listening.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to Beauty Babble.